As you know, of course, the new Prime Minister and the new government has decided to, with a stroke of a pen, but there were lots of people behind us who supported it, have decided to supercharge the climate commitment of reducing Australia's emissions on CO2 by 43% in the next 7.5 years. You know and I know what that's going to lead to, particularly massive issues when it comes to the energy system. In fact, James Morrow wrote today that there is going to be a near doubling of energy prices. But hang on, didn't they tell us they were going to save $275? Because of, among other things, the commitments made at the federal level now for 2030 and the overall commitments that the Globe has made towards 2050. And thanks to everyone who got in touch with us about what we had to say last night about the left's renewable energy frenzy. Now, I went hard on it last night, and I asked the simple question of, is the grid really ready for the green climate crusade? Put simply, I don't think so. But how's this for irony? Lots of people got in touch with us telling that the figures that I used last night were too generous, too easy, apparently I was, on renewable energy. And it appears that I had underestimated just how many batteries we would need to take power to this country and exactly what the cost of those batteries would be. So I thank you for all of your feedback. I do appreciate it, even when you think that I've undercooked the problem. But my overall point remains absolutely clear. Labor's energy target is something that we are simply not ready for. Nobody has an issue with renewables, but the cost of transition is always the key. We're not going to turn our back on coal anytime soon. And as a reminder about just how big the change that needs to happen in just 7.5 years, Chris Uhlmann told us about the experts he's been talking to.
Yeah, Paul, and it's not just me. In fact, the Energy Security Board brought out a paper this week on what's called a capacity market. It's to be able to actually supply energy when we need it. And there were some pretty inconvenient truths in that. It said that over the course of the next 28 years, we have to now build 7 times the generation that we've built in the last 24. To put that in some perspective, that's 50 snowy hydros.
Unbelievable. Oh, and by the way, about some renewable energy, a wind farm's connection to the South Australian power grid caused the lights to flicker across South Australia. Nothing to see here. It's awesome. And remember how, again, the Labor Party had its promise that by 2025 they will cut your power bills by $275. And I told you the key before you even think about what you're going to vote in 3 years' time is to get your most recent electricity bill, put a circle around how much it's going to be, and then if they can cut it by $275, okay, they were able to magically find a solution here. But guess what Chris Bowen is saying about between now and 2025? There will be no easing of power prices under a government of which he hopes to lead, but till then remains a gibbering minister.
So there will be pressure on 1 July on bills. Our job is to get on with what we're elected to do, to get more transmission, more storage and more renewables in the system, because that will reduce power bills. It's going to take a while for our policies to work. I think people understand that you don't fix 10 years of neglect in 10 days. But we're getting on with it, working very closely with states and territories. We're going to have one national integrated plan to get on with it. States and territories have agreed with us to do that. That's great news. So we're just going to get on with it.
10 days? Now, I know he hasn't been there for 10 years, 10 weeks or 10 months, but they've been there for a month, which is longer than 10 days, Minister. But that's okay. We trust our energy future with you. Ridiculous at times, isn't it? Oh, and by the way, we're starting to see the decisions that have been made by this government, where they can't blame the former one, that will have impacts on power prices, including this government, not the previous one, this government, when it had its meeting with all of the different state and territory energy ministers, said that the individual states and territories can come up with whatever they think is going to be the correct safety net for their energy market. In Victoria, they say it'll keep being renewables. Most likely it'll end up being something else in New South Wales and in Queensland. But guess what? The industry is now saying that that very decision itself will push up prices. They won't be able to blame anyone else. Their deal, their decision, and the power companies are telling up front the prices will go up as a result. Meantime, you cannot do worse than Matt Keane when it comes to being tone deaf on Australian politics. Remember when he told us all of this almost a quarter of the way into the 21st century?
What we want to see is if there is an opportunity for people to reduce their energy usage, so perhaps not using the dishwasher until you go to bed, that would help.
Well, an eagle-eyed person decided to take a photo of just how seriously Matt Keane takes the issue of reducing pressure on the energy grid, which includes him apparently leaving his lights on in his electorate office all the time. A few things worth a mention before we get to the rest of our panel chat this evening. In Western Australia, they have got a pay rise for the politicians. Oh, sorry, not the workers. The politicians are getting a pay rise, but guess what they're talking about? Reducing the number of days that the parliament actually has to sit. More money, less work. Good work, Labor.